Didn't get a good sleep last night. Nothing wrong, just tossing and turning. Nothing wrong. I was in a good mood actually. It got very warm during the night, just suddenly, and one of those nights where you just can't shut your brain off. Not for any bad reason. I just couldn't. But I think this video will be probably one to put the kettle on, and I want to cover a good few things. And I thought people didn't like my long videos, rants, discourse, chats, but apparently you love them, so I don't feel so bad about it now. So a lady on my Facebook friends group, social media, sent me something very interesting that that COVID spelled backwards spells dybbuk, and immediately she just sent dybbuk, and immediately just jumped off the page because I had been reading Isaac Bashevis Singer, the James Joyce of, the Jewish James Joyce of Poland and Brooklyn, and I'm a big fan of his writings. And the dybbuk is a type of Jewish demon. It's kind of in the jinn type way, and although you can say, okay, it's spelled backwards, that's pushing it a bit, but I don't know. The subconscious mind has a way of telling you things are happening. Although COVID may not be purposely connected to the dybbuk, even though it's got all kinds of demonic overtones like, Pazuzu and Koronzon. And the dybbuk thing it's spelled dybbuk, but it's pronounced dybbuk in Yiddish. And that's why I like the Isaac Bashevis Singer books. You learn a lot of Yiddish from them. It's an interesting language. It's a mixture of German and kind of Hebrew, Proto-Hebrew. But he has one story called, I think I read it on Alive on the Vaughan once, about a demon that lives in a Jewish ghetto lived in a Jewish ghetto in Poland. And after the Jews had been exterminated and the Gentiles moved back in, the demon, who was Jewish, this was interesting about it. Like, I'm talking about like the archetypes travel with the racial groups, like the She in Ireland and this kind of thing, Fae in England, and the elves in the Nordic world. And the dybbuk was left in the Jewish ghetto and living in a piece of furniture. And it was just a faded, it's talking about, I'm a lonely demon. I have no one paying me attention now, and I'm living among the Gentiles, and I don't have any power. And that's kind of like the basis of the story. And he talks from the story is told from the viewpoint of the demon, of the dybbuk, and it's a very good story. And when this lady sent me that thing yesterday on the dybbuk, I felt an immediate sense of closure to the whole Rona thing. Almost like, the way in a great banishing ritual, in a magic ritual, when you do the great banishing rite, you do everything that you've done to open the gates in reverse. So whatever the steps of the ritual were to open the gates into the abyss, to close the gates. So say you've summoned an entity, you do everything in reverse, going back out. And it's almost like seeing COVID spelled backward as dybbuk was like a kind of a kind of reflected into my consciousness as a kind of like, oh, we're heading into the end game now. Almost like we uncovered its secret. And I was thinking, the first thing I thought of was that if COVID doesn't get attention, COVID goes away. So the American media is full of nothing but Afghanistan, and the UK media too. The Irish media is still full of COVID stuff though. And but it's almost like if it's not given any power, it vanishes. And the way the demon in the Isaac Bashevis Singer story spends the rest of his existence miserable and trapped among the Gentiles, because the Jews were exterminated in the ghetto by the Nazis. The same thing about this. The Rona is losing its power. It's losing its charisma. And that was very interesting when that lady sent that to me yesterday, because it really, really like opened my mind up into a new way of thinking about the cycles of this thing and how it's coming to an end. Now, it's different than Ireland. I know you've all switched in America and the UK and other countries have switched over to the Afghan thing, and Ireland is different. Ireland being a communist country, it's still very much about controlling the masses inside the country. And as this, being, I mean, when people hear communist, especially Americans, when they hear the word communist country, they think of impoverished Eastern European countries in the 1970s. And there are wealthy communist countries too. Ireland is one, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark being like the most well-known, like Iceland being the most well-known examples. And but we're communists in every way. I mean, if you haven't figured that out by the whole Rona thing, you never will. We were locked down, like we just saw the real Bolshevik control of Ireland, giving us the hardest lockdown in the world and that kind of thing. But at the same time too, being a small country, we're very easily influenced. Well, not easily influenced, but we tend to follow our nearest neighbours on both sides. The UK here and USA here, although our nearest neighbour that side is really Canada. But do you ever know, that's why you have like it's just weird, like the archetypes. Varadkar in Ireland, Trudeau in Canada, and Marcone, who's coming here next week for some big ass state visit. I believe when Marcone comes here next week, he will have his ass kissed. There's kind of like a connection between Ireland and kind of a mutual love between Irish and the French, but because of things like rugby and stuff like that, and both of us being at war with the English and the British at certain times, but it'll be sickening. The Irish media next week will be unwatchable when Marcone comes from the state visit. It'll make you want to vomit, because he's running a lockdown in France that's just as Bolshevik as the one in Ireland. There were three worst ones. Well, the four worst would be Ireland, New Zealand, Victoria, and France. And then provinces in Canada are not far behind, like Quebec, which is very surprising to me. But then again, people are surprised at how easy the Irish bottled it. But yeah, I mean, so that'll be sickening. But it also seems like it's coming to an end. When I saw the dybbuk thing, it was like a signal for. It was like an amplified signal of subconscious saying, "Oh, we can now enter the end game." And sure enough, at the same day, the government here, the NEFID, the Pharmacological Occupational Administration stewards, said they were going to reevaluate the indoor dining pass thing. When I say like reevaluate, that's like, classic gaslighting. Look, they either stop it or they don't, But that should be interesting to see what happens, because we're running basically running an apartheid here. But also, the thing has been a big flop. The thing has been a huge flop. It's not been a success. It hasn't. The takings are not up in pubs and restaurants and cafes that implemented the present your papers. I've actually seen a cafe in Sligo that says wait here and present your documents, like fucking Third Reich, and a fucking crystal on the table beside it, like typical New Age bullshit. And it's unbelievable, but the place is empty. It's probably doing an eighth of its regular business, and that's repeated all over the country. There was, when the day grand opening happened, the government invited the media, the world here, to show us like that we're going to have the great digital passport reopening for those who are needlecrafted and ping pong jabberwockies, and it was a flop. And the couple of papers around, the couple of pictures I saw in papers in the news was like, like a few places where there was one or two people and then some gobshite with his sandwiches mouth. It's kind of, it wasn't busy. It flopped, and that's what happened, because even people who were had the needlecraft didn't want to be any part of it, because they didn't like what was going on, and quite rightly. Even if they were pro-vaccine, they were quite like, this is not right. And now it's turned out that the ones who have actually, in Ireland, there's been a big increase in cases, and the increase in cases is caused by and even admitted, the government came out and absolutely admitted it, the people who have the indoor dining pass. What's happening is the Jabberwockies with the indoor pass, dining pass, are all sitting in clusters together in the same restaurants, pubs, cafes, and they're all infecting each other with the spike proteins and the Delta variants. While us, who are the organics and have stayed out of it, have done all right. We're not getting sick and we're not ending up in hospital. So, I mean, I'll tell you some of I heard some stories recently, and they're just amazing. The denial, the absolute denial out there. Like, well, I know we're hearing all the time, but one I heard was, I was talking to a chap yesterday called Keith, who came to the coffee insurgency, and a fella he worked with got the first shot and went completely blind for 2 days. He, in the minute, literally the minute the injection, the needle was taken out of his arm, he went completely blind. And it was 2 days before he got his eyesight back, and then he went for the second jab. There's, like, I was talking to other friends yesterday, were saying things like friends of theirs who were, a friend was there who was pregnant, got it, and was basically paralyzed down one side. And when she said to her, it's the needle, and she goes, how could it be? It's just astounding. It's almost impossible to believe. The devotion that the people have for the vaccine is like unbelievably religious. This thing is a Christ-like figure to them. And I have been saying that from the start, but boy, even I underplayed that one. It's much worse than that. It's not only a religion to them; it's a fanatical Puritan crusade. And so they're claiming now that we nearly have 90% of Irish people vaccinated. That they didn't say that exactly, but they said, they hinted at it, and they says the target for herd immunity vaccinations of those who want it has been reached. So they're claiming indirectly that 90. I don't believe 90% they're taking it, but the 90% has been reached, and so therefore they're going to reevaluate the indoor dining rules. Which should be all restrictions should be immediately scrapped. But the real reason they're reevaluating the indoor dining room is because the restaurant associations and the hospitality, representatives of the trade unions in the hospital in those sectors are like saying, our businesses are falling apart. I mean, the Irish Times tried to make out it was a huge success. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't. And I know people who run restaurants, and I know people who've actually deliberately not, deliberately not opened up their indoor dining and gone with just having their outdoor dining, and the weather's been good, and they're booming. They're booming. You travel through this county and through the city of Sligo, and you see the places that have just done outdoor only are packed. And that's because even people who are very pro the whole narrative, mainstream narrative, are deeply uncomfortable, because it triggers memories in Ireland of the penal laws when Irish people was illegal to be Irish in Ireland for about 100 years. And even the city charter of Galway City still says something like, and it was over the gates to the city, neither Mac nor O's, neither Max nor O's, meaning anyone with the name Mac something or O something, shall tread the streets of Galway. That was from the penal law times. There was terrible sectarianism against Irish people living in Ireland. It was illegal to be Irish here, and this triggered a memory in even people who would be like pro-government and pro-needlecraft, it triggered a historic ancestral memory in them of what the past was like here. And so that was, I think that was one of their biggest mistakes was that. And but what will they stop on? It's who's to know. There's still so many hysterical ninnies. It's unbelievable that that they introduce. You see, there's a gamble here. They're saying, well, they're seeing that the places that have outdoor dining only and refuse to be policemen for the state are all booming. The restaurants who set themselves up for indoor dining would present papers, please, Jawohl, uh, for mein Führer. They they're not doing as well as they thought they would. So, but so there's a gamble between do we let everywhere open? They probably go back to the thing with the you can only stay for a certain limit and have a beer. You have to have like a 10 euro meal with your beer or something like that, a substantial meal, and then you have to leave at night. They probably bring that shite back. Even more ridiculous. They keep the ninnies happy. I'm so frightened. I'm so very very frightened. And yeah, so another I'll tell you some things. Yeah, as you heard me saying, there's people meeting up for coffees and teas, and not only in Ireland, but that's happening everywhere now. And we identify ourselves by the Triscola, and everyone was at the one that I went on Saturday yesterday. That goes on all day. It doesn't just go in the morning, and it was wonderful, and people came from Roscommon, and Donegal, and Leitrim, and as far away as Waterford, which is on the exact opposite coast, diagonally across from Ireland. Waterford is like what 300 odd miles away, and they came up and we had a lovely time, and it was amazing, guys. You've got to get this done in your neighborhood, in your town. I'm getting emails from people that's happening all over the place. You've got to do this. Just announce that, like with anyone on, who's on the side of the tribe or has a tribal kind of attitude to this. Would you like to meet up and have tea or coffee? And we've been going to this place and we've been spending a lot of money there. Everyone, we not only buy teas and coffees, but they serve nice food. We reward the owner by buying everyone. Like some people bought like more food than they'd normally eat just to reward the owner. So they bought like a beautiful salad with a beautiful hot sandwich, and the food is really good. And then bought like 2 or 3 coffees and bought everyone else coffees and sodas and stuff like that. So made sure that the owner is getting lots of business from us. That was a very important part of it. So the owner of the place, who openly said, I'm not going to be a copper for the government. He's a really good guy. And and that's happening in a few places down in, I believe it's happening, and there's a cafe along the N4, which is the main, the M4 and the N4, one of them, the motorway or the dual carriageway between Dublin and Sligo, and it's halfway between Carrick and Shannon and Boyle in Roscommon and Leitrim, and they've already got a group of like 32, which is really impressive. And it's the same kind of cafe there. The guy doesn't make them wear masks, but the phenomenon is remarkable. We were there all day yesterday, and at the end, a chap brought a guitar up and we were singing songs, and some people were singing Irish folk songs and some pop songs. And it was just beautiful, and it's the place that when we started doing this, there was a handful of us. There's about 20 now, about 15 and 20, 18 around that number. I didn't count yesterday, but some can't make it every week. I'd say that the circular group that comes is about 25 now. Though some weeks you get 15, some weeks you get 18. But of all the people that come now, when they don't make it every week, it's about 25, which is great. And what the people around, when we first started doing this, at all the other tables in this place, outdoor tables, people will be wearing masks and this kind of thing. Well, now they look across and they see a bunch of people of all different types, different racial groups, different ages, and they're all hugging and kissing and smiling, and laughing and singing, and they're taking their mask off. It's amazing. It's amazing what your attitude. This is why I'm against protesting, because all the protesting does is tell the government to be your, I'm your slave. Give me, do something for me. This was just beautiful humanity, and and people lost their fear when they saw how happy we were. Now, what's also happening around the country? It's funny. Like, there's a bigger deal in Ireland than we realise. There's a lot of people having secret meetings in their homes. It's like they're mostly religious groups, which is okay. I mean, they're allowed, but they tend to be they tend to be Catholics, and they have. I heard about one the other night in Sligo that went on for 3 hours, and people spoke at it, and everyone said it was amazing. And it was run by some Catholic people, so there was a prayer at the beginning, I was told. But they said, they weren't pushy. There was just a prayer to start. They didn't push anything else like that. And which I wouldn't be bothered by. That's their own business. Your religion is your own business. But they said that it ranged from people who were kind of like on the lower end of insurgency to people who are quite hardcore, and so it was very interesting. But one of my friends who was there was telling me about a great story about there was a box of there was they made all food, made sandwiches and coffee and tea for everyone, and they had they had treats as well. So they had the big box of Maltesers, the the chocolate like circular brownie biscuits things, and that was handed. The people were 50 people in a living room, like in a house like this, and they were all like, there's 50 people there in a house, so it was about as anti social distancing as you could get, and they were handing around the box of Maltesers, and they were just handing around. Everyone was taking out a couple of chocolate biscuits and handing to the next person chocolate balls and taking them out. And she was just saying, my God, here we are, 50 of us crammed into a room, no social distancing, sharing a box of chocolates with our bare hands, and no one terrified of being killed by the Rona. And that's the power of doing that. That's how the spell. And it was funny enough that it was literally when I got home after yesterday's was insurgency, that woman had sent me the dybbuk thing. It was right. We're breaking the spell. We're breaking the spell by just meeting, talking, and sharing. And a gang of them went out to Hazelwood, to the forest at the lake last night to have a party, a barbecue. I couldn't do it because I have work today. But it's a beautiful thing, what's happening. The whole thing of people meeting up, and it's just beautiful. And that's all. The control system, Control 19, was kept going by keeping people isolated and alone and alienated from their neighbours who only knew what the mainstream programming was. And that's how Control 19 kept them down. But as soon as they found someone else and that could give them a little bit of compassion and love and friendship, and just talk about what they're going through, the spell was dissipated. You see, what they did with the Control 19 and the whole lockdown and everything was they created a new form of institutionalization. And this new form of institutionalization, once it's in, it's difficult to break, because it's like, I know lads that came out of prison or out of the army. I had a terrible time trying to fit back into the world, because in the army or in the prison, everything is done for you. All you have to do is basically do as you're told, and you get everything. So when they got back to civil life or were on parole, they found it very difficult, because they'd have to like little things, like going to the laundrette to wash their clothes. That'll be all done in the prison or in the army, and There's a song by Pronsky Beat, Small Town Boy. It's a beautiful song from the 80s. And there's a line that goes in it. But the answers you seek will never be found at home. And it's like the answers you seek will never be found at home. Meaning that you've got to break tradition in order to evolve as an individual away from a situation. You've got to walk away from a family that's holding you back with the kind of the family kind of thing, a divorce, a relationship breakup, leaving a job, emigrating, moving to another town. You've got to do it, and when you've made that decision to cross the threshold, you can't go back. The army is not going to let you back in, and the only way you're going to get back to prison is if you commit another crime. What you're doing is you're breaking the institutionalization spell. And good God, that's a powerful spell, and that's why it affects people, ex-military and ex-prison people, so badly. But even people who've worked for religious orders, not just in the religion themselves, but when I was a kid, apprentice, and wasn't apprentice, I was working for this company, the sound and telecommunications around the country, while I was doing my in tech, and they used to go to convents around the country, and there was always the people who worked in the convent. Where they were the women in the office. It was a convent school or something, or whatever convent home. The convents that were not just convents; they were also schools and hospitals and a healthcare place for elderly people. The people who worked in there, whether they were the groundskeepers, the gardeners, the office staff, or the maintenance staff, they were terribly institutionalized. Like, they got the impression that they just left secondary school after they got they graduated in what Americans call high school, and got a job in these places, these religious orders run places, and they become in no time institutionalized, that they can't everything, to have their tea break at the same time, they do everything, it's like that. And it's the same when you break tradition, and like walking out of a relationship or walking around the normie world. You're having to literally de-institutionalize yourself, but it can be done, and I'm seeing that more and more lately. They created a brand new institutionalism with the Rona, and people have to learn how to break that institutionalism, and they'll do it as well, and we'll do it. And it's all about the love. I know that sounds weird, but it is the love of yourself. Sometimes it's okay to love yourself, and sometimes that need to love yourself, comes with a lot of pain and heartbreak from walking away from something you were once in. But there's no evolution without it. Can you only imagine the biological and incredible psychic pain that a moth goes through as it turns into a butterfly? To transform from this thing like a maggot into like this stunning butterfly. What the forces must be unleashed inside the pupa? Hard to imagine. That's it. Anyway, I was I just drifted off there for a second because I remembered someone who died, and it was almost like they came into my brain, and not a Rona. This was someone a few years ago, and it was like they just fell in my head. Then you just caught me, like this happens to me sometimes, and you just caught me there, and it was like a little trance I went into, and wow, it's weird, but I saw their face as clear as anything in front of me. But again, another symbol that these things. So we're living in a beautiful time in many ways too, as dark as it is, because the darkness and the shadow always reveals the light. and just as the light always reveals the shadow and the darkness. And yeah, I mean, I'm seeing beautiful things around me. I'm seeing beautiful changes, and that's when I went into that little trance. Then it was like I was the I felt like what it was being the butterfly inside. I don't even know how long I was in there. The butterfly inside the chrysalis becoming the moth inside the moth, the caterpillar inside the chrysalis becoming the beautiful butterfly. And those of us who are determined to get out of this, we'll become the beautiful butterfly. So spread your wings and break with tradition, break with institutionalization, and fly away. Take care, love you all.